There's a strange thing that happens when you step into a store or scroll through a shopping site. You feel like you're in control, like you're comparing prices, reading descriptions, and making logical decisions. But in reality, most of what you're responding to isn't obvious at all. It's subtle. It's engineered. And more often than not, the sale was already in motion long before you even knew what you were looking for. Take priming, for example, a psychological effect where your decisions are influenced by something you've seen or heard earlier, often without realizing it. Let's say you walk into a store playing upbeat, luxurious music. Suddenly, you feel like you're in a high-end space, and your willingness to pay more increases. If the music is slow and soft, you might linger longer and buy more items. Sellers understand that sensory cues affect behavior, and they use them constantly through lighting, scent, layout, and even temperature. Then there's labeling, a technique where you're subtly given an identity so you behave in line with it. Ever been told, "You seem like someone who appreciates quality," or, "Most of our smart customers choose this"? Those aren't compliments, they're psychological traps. Once we accept a label, even casually, our brain tries to act consistently with it. And in the context of a sale, that means aligning with the product that reinforces that label. Another tactic that flies under the radar is option overload, where you're bombarded with so many choices that your brain gets overwhelmed and defaults to the easiest, most prominent option. Sellers don't always want you to explore every possibility. They want you to surrender. They'll create a sea of confusing packages or plans, and then highlight the one they want you to pick as recommended or best value. Faced with too many paths, most people choose the one that feels like it's been chosen for them. Let's not forget contrast manipulation, where two products are intentionally placed next to each other so that one looks dramatically better. A low-quality shirt priced at $60 may seem ridiculous, until it's placed beside a nearly identical shirt priced at $180, making that $60 option suddenly feel like a deal. Sellers manipulate contrast all the time, especially in clothing, electronics, and even food packaging, because your perception of value depends more on what's next to the product than the product itself. Then there's emotional anchoring, which isn't about numbers at all, but feelings. If a salesperson gets you talking about something personal, your kids, your wedding, your recent vacation, they're not just making small talk. They're trying to connect your positive emotions to the buying moment. Once you're in a good emotional state, they slide in the pitch, and suddenly the decision feels like an extension of a good mood. This isn't coincidence. It's technique. One of the boldest tricks in selling is delayed cost framing, the kind used in buy now, pay later models or installment plans. By spreading out payments or delaying the first charge, sellers separate the act of purchase from the pain of payment, which tricks your brain into perceiving the product as cheaper than it actually is. It's not the total cost that matters. It's the immediate emotional cost. And when that's low or invisible, we're far more likely to say yes. A related strategy is price hiding, especially in service industries, where you'll see vague language like custom packages or let's discuss your goals first before any numbers are shown. The idea is to build desire before introducing friction. If they showed you the $2,000 price tag up front, you might bounce. But if they can get you imagining the transformation first, the price becomes secondary to the vision you've already bought into. Persuasion, a term coined by psychologist Robert Cialdini, is all about what happens before the pitch, creating an environment or mindset that makes the actual sale more likely. For example, if a website gets you to click a quiz titled, "Which productivity type are you?" and then recommends a planner tailored to your type, the suggestion feels personal and customized, even though it was part of the plan all along. The sale didn't start at the product page. It started with your answer. Another classic move is the foot-in-the-door technique, where a small initial request is followed by a larger one. Marketers know that if they can get you to say yes to something minor, like clicking a button or signing up for a free trial, you're statistically more likely to agree to something bigger later, like upgrading to a paid version or accepting a bundle deal. It works because we want to remain consistent with our own behavior. One trick that's been especially powerful online is urgency through false activity. Like when a pop-up says, "James from Ohio just bought this item," or 15 people are viewing this right now. Whether or not that's true is beside the point. What matters is the feeling that something is popular, moving fast, or in demand. That urgency pushes you to make a decision now, before thinking too hard or clicking away. There's also the use of identity marketing, where brands subtly tie their product to a version of who you want to be. It's not just a shirt. It's a symbol of independence. It's not just a course. It's a sign you're the kind of person who invests in themselves. When you buy the product, you're buying into the narrative and reinforcing your own self-image. That emotional bond can be stronger than any logical reason to buy. A sneaky tactic often used in premium branding is inaccessibility by design. Sometimes a seller doesn't want to be available to everyone. By creating a sense of exclusivity, through invitation-only platforms, high price floors, or complex qualification processes, they increase desire. Humans tend to chase what they can't have. The harder it is to buy, the more valuable it feels, even if the product itself isn't much different from a cheaper, more accessible version. Another subtle but dangerous technique is visual misdirection, where attention is drawn away from the negatives, like hiding less favorable details in fine print, using grayscale for extra fees, or tucking disclosures below a bright "Order Now" button. Visually, your eye is guided toward the action the seller wants you to take, and away from the information that might slow you down or cause hesitation. Then there's dynamic pricing, where the price of a product can change depending on your location, browsing history, or behavior. If you've checked a flight 3 times in one day, chances are the price might magically rise, encouraging you to buy before it gets even higher. It's artificial pressure, yes, but it's surprisingly effective. Airlines, travel sites, and even some e-commerce platforms use it routinely. Some sellers use reframing value by comparing price to completely unrelated expenses. You'll hear things like, "It's less than what you spend on coffee each week," or "That's the price of 2 nights out." This tactic doesn't change the product, it changes what you compare it to, which affects whether it feels expensive or not. By tying the cost to something you already consider normal, they make the purchase feel rational. There's also guarantee anchoring, where a product promises not just satisfaction, but a risk-free return, a warranty, or even a double-your-money-back claim. These guarantees lower your natural buying resistance, not because people often return items, but because the option to return gives them a psychological safety net. It removes perceived risk and allows emotion to drive the decision forward. Finally, we have tribe association, where you're sold not just a product, but a community. Whether it's a Facebook group, a members-only forum, or just the language of people like us, this tactic taps into our primal need to belong. When you feel like joining means being part of something bigger, more aligned, more you, the product becomes a badge, a way to show the world who you are or who you want to be. When you combine all these techniques, priming, identity framing, persuasion, false scarcity, visual misdirection, you realize just how layered and strategic modern selling has become. It's no longer about someone convincing you with facts. It's about a system designed to make saying yes feel easier, faster, and safer than ever before. But here's the thing, being aware of these strategies doesn't mean you have to resist everything. Some products are genuinely helpful. Some sellers are truly ethical. But the more you recognize the patterns, the more power you have over your own decisions, and the less likely you are to be rushed, nudged, or emotionally swayed without realizing it. The smartest buyers aren't cynical. They're just informed.